Let me show these suckers how to ball out here. Oh, man, let's get this together here. Oh, layup. Oh, shot. Oh, three. Oh, it's like Brick City out here. Mid-range. Oh, my goodness. I can't buy a bucket out here. I missed the whole damn basket. Oh, my goodness. What's going on, man? My game is looking trash. Oh, here we go. Black Power Media shirt. Now we cooking. Tree. I'm taking on three of y'all with these right here. Between the legs. Oh, my goodness. Behind the back. Layup. Oh, did he just do a reverse? He is in beast mode out here. I ain't got to look. It's falling. Oh, my goodness. This guy is going 3, 2, 1. Kobe. Nice. Black Power Media, baby. Nice. Empower yourself. Go get you some of that Black Power Media again. Right here, blackpowermedia.org. Yeah.
Saturday
with Renee.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That tickles me every time. It's
Yeah.
hysterical. I love it. Oh man.
What's up, Renee? What's up,
going
everybody?
on, Jared? It does,
I can't
Monty.
call it.
It does, Monty. It does. I don't know. Maybe in a while we'll like get past it, but I feel like if we're always giggling about it, that's like a good thing, right?
Yeah, of course.
You gotta
Have a
find the
little
small,
fun.
yeah, man.
Yeah,
You gotta
come
find
on
the
now.
small stuff, man. Life,
Especially after trying to keep up with your run sheet,
stuff. Yeah.
and then it's gray and gloomy out here today. It's a little bit.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
needed a
December.
little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We it's rough out here.
Rough, man.
Big pun in the building. 1 p.m. rally in Boston for Palestine. Right on.
Nice.
Right on.
There
Right
we
on.
go.
Shout out to everybody making noise and raising a ruckus around Palestine and making the appropriate connections to other oppressed conditions. In fact, probably later today, I'm going to post, I saw some, this is going to be a quick little video, but I saw something on Electronic Intifada, of course, and it just peaked something. So shout out to everybody doing that, and thanks for letting us know about it, and please do
Keep screaming, man. I've decided that's like, it's literally the only way. There's like nothing's gonna happen if we fall for the nonsense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of this is on, this is good because some of this is stuff that's been on the run sheet for like a little while that we haven't been able to get to, because what is happening like locally, right, with silence, and we talked a little bit about how Students for Justice in Palestine got suspended at Rutgers last week. And I sat through a board meeting last month, and there's a group in Jersey who's been years, they've been working on educational, like political education, social justice education. The group is on the right side of history, right? And so they support Palestine. They want to free Palestine. They want to let the Palestinians live. They want them to get their land back. And there are a group of parents in this district that have come out to full-throatedly attack this group.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, full chest, full throat, full everything to attack this group. And I sat because I was just curious about what was going to be said at this board meeting. And the amount of people who got onto that board meeting and said things like, to call what's happening in Gaza genocide is racist. Yeah.
Against who?
against the Zionists. Although they refer to the Zionists as Jewish people, which I adamantly disagree with. But
so they're saying their actual argument was that calling it genocide is racist against Jews.
Yes.
Wow.
And that the racism that they're seeing in the refusal to condemn Hamas.
Wow.
I mean, it was a wild thing to witness. And so, I really started looking at school districts and what's happening. I could not fully fall down the rabbit hole because I just did not have enough time.
I mean, you can't be down every single one of them now.
Yeah, I can't. But it is a wild thing to witness the levels to which people are going to just completely deny the humanity of Palestinian people, right? And I find myself constantly saying things like, people always say, like, how do these things happen in history, right? Like, look around. This is how these things happen, right? Because there are people who willingly participate in encouraging the death of other people, right? So I'm on a private chat for a community organization that's supposed to be about justice. And we're currently fighting about whether MLK would continue to support Israel today. And I'm like this close to posting your video that you did about Amy Schumer's.
But I mean, because
I
the
feel
Amy Schumer. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go, because you're about to say what I'm about.
Well, just the Amy. Well, I don't know. I was going to say the Amy Schumer part is silly, but the substance of the argument from that video is from, and shout out to Barter and Build and Geechee and them, is from that Black Power Palestine book, right? Where you just, again, you can't fully predict, and I don't like when people do, well, what would so and so and such be saying such and such, but all the evidence suggests, given what he did say at the time, that King would not have been, he was already expressing, I think this isn't, and then he said that line that kills it for me, the line that I'm going to butcher here, he said, if you want to solve this, Israel got to give up the land.
Right.
So right. He's saying the occupation is the problem. So, right. I mean, people just, but what it is. We all at this point know what the problem is.
You just don't read, beloved.
So can I tell you, that's where I went. So now, because I can't help myself, right? Sometimes I want desperately to be the person who can like sit back and watch people say stupidity, like just talk absolute nonsense and like quietly just ignore it. But I don't have it in me. And I don't know if it's because I'm getting too close to 50. So I'm like getting to that age where I'm like, I just don't really care if I piss you off because this is just nonsense. But I literally wrote to somebody, your problem is you don't read and you don't research and you are letting other people tell you what to think. And if you would just take a second and like get off of the TV and stop watching mainstream media, like I posted in there the 2017 charter because one of these people was going on about how Hamas wants to kill all the Jewish people. And I was like, that is literally a lie. And you are literally not paying attention to anything outside of what you're watching on TV. And you need to read, right? And
see, I would still take the worst argument, and I admit this is the worst argument, which is even if Hamas did want to get rid of every Jew on the planet, my question would be, would they still feel that way if Israel was not occupying Palestine?
Which is true. And because I think my only thing with that is I am so adamantly against confusing people who practice Judaism with Zionists.
Right.
right? That's my
Oh, right.
line,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Is that, and that's what they've made very, very clear in their charter, is that this is not about the Jewish people. This is not about religion. This is about the consistent occupation, colonization, and murder of, the indigenous people of that land, so that you all can just come and take over, right? And so I put the charter in there, and I was like, you need to stop watching regular TV and you need to do your own research. And then the person who's still going on about Martin Luther King, I was like, how about you stop hiding behind someone who was literally assassinated because his views started changing and he was public about that, and tell me what you actually think. Put it out there, because I'm sick of people, right? Like, the reason you're talking about MLK is because you don't want to admit that you don't care about Palestinians. You don't want to put it in writing that you don't care if all the Palestinians die, right? Because I'm seeing way too much, like, these Israeli military women posing on the beach talking about, I gotta come back here in my bikini because they don't even deserve this. Like, oh, like, we still pretending like this is something that's like noble and about something. Come on, man, like, stop. This is
It's always a good time to
absurd.
ask what like, even what, just to bring him up again, what Geechee said the other day. What is the last thing you read on this subject?
Right. I did
What's
like that one.
What's the last thing from Dr. King you read about his stance on Israel?
Right.
I'm just curious,
Because it's ridiculous.
Can I, before we move on and before I forget, and before we continue even with this discussion, I saw Silberg put this, and I wanted to, because I made a note to bring this up.
Oh, I wish I could have got on. I know it's on my list of things to listen to today. I couldn't do it last night. I couldn't do it.
I think you said something about 50 and becoming more of a problem. I have always thought that the one thing I look forward to with getting old is to get that John Henrik Clarke, I'm old enough not to care if I offend anybody line, like, to get to that. But I feel like last night, I've not felt softer than I felt in years. Like, I was incredibly moved by the gathering and what was said on that discussion last night about Kwesi Balagoon and the comrades that were there, and to see David Gilbert and others, to see you talk about the distinction between Jews, Zionism, conservative politics, like all of that, just it's something about the moment. And to see, it's a very powerful discussion that I think people really need to, and to see the way gender, sexuality, political differences are handled, the way various nationalisms and politics were handled, the way Gilbert brought up, his disagreement with Balagoon over anarchism and third world Marxism. It was incredibly dope, and I was just like, man.
They do. That channel does work.
They always do. Yeah. And Jared is a great interviewer. And he's like, reads everything and has a sharp mind to remember everything. He's got a good journalistic style. Ashanti Alston started tearing up. I mean, like, I was like, yeah, I'm with you. It was crazy. And the way he was talking about Kwesi, like, I never met dude in person. We were always on the other side of a wall or other side of a room or a move, like it was, I mean, but that they were always linked up. I mean, it was, and then kind of reminding me of again, and I'll stop here, but of what Ori is doing in Tip of the Spear. And I think, and I just know I don't mean to be, I feel like I'm not the right vessel for this, but all of these discussions, most of these neoliberal discussions of sexuality and gender got to be redone in light of Balagoon, in light of Tip of the Spear. The politics of it is being destroyed in favor of a really myopic look at these things. And what was said last night, people should just start there. I mean, it was crazy. So I just encourage everybody to check it out. I'm definitely going to watch it again. I was all up in my feelings and emotions last night. It was crazy. It was crazy. Yeah. So definitely check it out.
It was on my list. If I could have found a way to, it was family time last night, so I could.
Yeah, definitely. Right on.
But so they bring on a lot of good people, and they have a lot. And in fact, I started watching them because of the interview they did with you about the book. And so I started to watch that one. And then at the start, they were like, well, go back to our first interview. And then I went back to the first one. And then I found all these other things. And I was like, man, so I started giving them money. But
I'll be honest with you, Renee, and everybody else. When I look at their lineup, I'm out of place. Like, I appreciate it, but I'm out of place. There's levels to this intellectual thing, and they hit registers way, way, way above mine. Like, there's stuff, they have conversations. I'm in there like, yo, I don't know I don't understand a thing. And it's not that they're on some silliness, is that I just have not caught up. So yeah, when I look at the roster that they have, and then I'm like, I feel like mine is kind of like, so yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're not fishing for compliments, but you definitely do not see yourself the way the people who appreciate you see you.
Well, that might be true.
Be clear on that.
And I appreciate that they do, but we got to be real. I understand, but we got to be real. But we got to be real. That's why you have people being. I put it this. I'm gonna do this one silly thing and then we can move on. This is why you got people being. This is why Cam and Mace had to put Smush Parker in his place this week. When Smush tried to recount a story of how Kobe shamed him when he was on the Lakers and was doing it in a way for himself to fish for compliments. And they were like, look, you deserved it. There are levels to this. You barely made it into the league. And then you're going to go at Kobe and start talking like you know, Kobe had every right to be like, son, I'm barely even recognizing you exist.
He's so ridiculous. Ricky gonna hit you over the head with flowers the next time. That's her plan. So we're gonna let her take.
We got to be real. We just got to be real. We got to be real. This is why people out here thinking that LeBron is better than Jordan, and people. There's all kinds of confusion out here. Like, people got to get there. You got to understand where you fit in the brand and be okay with that. There's nothing wrong.
Whatevs, bro. Whatevs, brah. As my son would say, whatevs, brah. Bruh.
My daughters even have me saying that.
Yeah. I hit somebody with it on Twitter the other day. I was like, bruh, please. And I was
they're trying to recreep. I told them they're trying to recreep the patriarchy. Why is everything bruh?
Yeah.
Like girls. I'm watching girls soccer and they're out there like, bro, pass the ball. Bruh. I'm like, whoa. There's not a man out here. Who's all these bros? We fought for years to get women acknowledged, and you out here, bruh. But seriously, they're like, bruh.
Yeah.
And if you miss a pass, bruh. Bro.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. Wild.
All right.
Okay. So a couple of things.
What you want to do?
So real quick, because this has been on the sheet for a while and people are still responding to what I said in response on Instagram. So there's a line on it that says, is she wrong? And I don't know if you actually watched.
I did a long time ago.
It's been on there for a long time. But somebody just wrote back to me again to be like, you are not wrong. Because my response to this was basically like, she probably just saved that dude's life. That was my initial response.
All right.
You never know what happens once you get out of the car.
All right.
So run it.
You're probably right. Here we go.
Yes, I do. Right here.
Did I turn you over there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess you just got out of jail, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened there?
Misdemeanors, driving.
Yeah?
Yeah, no plates, no insurance. He got me for obstruction.
I got you. All right.
He went to jail over driving.
They don't like that. They don't like that.
What for?
No, I just want to talk. No, I'm trouble, nothing.
He can talk while he's sitting in the car. He doesn't have to get out of the car to talk to you. You put your leg back in this car, Antonio, and you close that door and you roll your window down. No, he's gonna talk to you inside of this car. He gonna talk to you inside this car. Close your damn door.
I'm not going to jail.
Close your door and roll that window down. No, I'm sorry. I'm being calm. He can talk to you inside of this car.
So what do you need to talk about?
He can talk to you inside of this car. Close that door and roll that window down. Here, I'll roll my window down for you. Close that door, Antonio.
All right, well, I don't got nothing to say to him.
All right, thank you. Close the door. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You got all your information?
Yes, I do. Right here.
I don't mean to laugh, but right here's my thing. And this was my immediate reaction, was she probably just saved that dude's life, because there are too many instances of getting out of the car and now that's when everything goes awry, right? Like everything goes crazy. He's sitting in the car with a white woman. So in my estimation, they're not really going to move to start shooting inside of the car because
she's white
there. That was what I took from it. Now,
I didn't. Okay, my bad.
Right.
I didn't see her as white. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So to me, he is safer in the vehicle with her than he is out of the vehicle with them armed officers of the state. So that was my initial feedback, was she just saved that dude's life. So all of these comments have been flowing in. Like one person was like, nah, because when you don't follow directions, that's when things start going crazy, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, but you making the assumption that him getting out of the car doesn't put him in a worse predicament than him being in the car with the person that they're not likely to start shooting at. Just saying.
I got to get out the chat. The chat is everywhere. So we got it's everywhere from I thought she was light skinned to I thought she was a dude.
I know, I saw.
And then you're saying she's white. I mean, all right.
So let's just go with my estimation, which is that this is a white woman that he was riding in the car with. Because not even that, not to be funny, if that was a black woman, they wouldn't have allowed all of that. I'm not trying to be funny at all. If that was me being like, nah, close the door, you think they would have responded by closing the damn door? Come on, man. No shot.
So I don't know. I've seen, there's just been so much, I feel like I've seen every version of this. So I just don't, so my initial reaction was that I read this as, and so all of this could be wrong, but just so we're clear, I read this as a cis, het, light-skinned black woman saving her black man. So that's how I read it. But my initial reaction was I think, and I'm not per se proud of this, but was fearful and was thinking, where is that line between she saved his life or she is escalating and creating because I've seen every version of it. I've been in the car for some of these versions where what might be an appropriate response is an escalation. And it was in one instance I'm thinking of the woman. And my thought at the time was, please stop talking. Please stop talking. You're making it worse. So that was maybe my own bias. So I was like initially maybe traumatized by that. Like, oh no. But I think So there's that. Then there is, I also have seen where a black woman, an easily read and identifiably black woman, has, knowing her rights and the rights of the people involved, stood up to the police and it went well. We obviously have many instances where it doesn't. So I don't always know. It sometimes does depend on everything from who the cops are, where they are, what time of day, the specific situation the cop is in. And and the problem with the whole thing is, given the institutional relationship, there is no right and wrong way.
Exactly. There really
You
is.
could be humble and quiet and
Still end up in
bullet holed or imprisoned. You could be brash and defiant and correct and end up going home. You could, so it's like, I don't know. Right. But I just went through all kinds of stuff. And now that you add, and now if she is a white woman, oh man, I don't know that. I don't know if that changes anything from, I don't know. But that's really where I am with it. There is no right or wrong in terms of what is guaranteed to be a successful interaction with the police.
There's no guarantee with these armed killers. There's no guarantee with that, because anything can happen. But there was someone who reacted just like what you just said, which is, nah, she escalated this, that, the other thing. And because in my mind it was a white woman, I always, like, my thought was, she's allowed to do that, right? She's allowed to escalate. She's allowed to get loud and to do this thing and whatever, because, the reality is the law was on her side, right? Like, he didn't need to get out of the car. He wasn't driving. There was no need for him to get out of the car. There was no reason for him to get out of the car. But, that was just...
Now you got me thinking, I'm not even aware, has anybody ever done research into all of the police killings of black people? How many involved a white
person as a
partner or friend?
It's a good question. Because
does having the white person in the car actually lead, like, would data show having a white person with you is you're more likely to survive an encounter with the police than not? That would be...
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Like, everybody should have that one white, get a white person. So you need, ride with me. I got to go to the store real quick.
And I'm thinking of the situations where there was a black woman in the car and he was shot in the car, right?
Yeah.
So.
Philando Castile, right? Wasn't that him?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Would that have ever happened if she was white or even fair skinned, for that matter?
Right. I don't have a good answer, but I thought it was, the reason it was on there was because of the communication, the constant.
Vanilla chaperones. My bad. I'm sorry, man. That's I know it's inappropriate, but that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. It was just something to think, to really think on. And it'd been on there so long, but somebody literally just wrote back to me like yesterday and they were like, I think you're right.
But in general, because the other part of it is, in general, I do like to see the defiance.
Yes.
Like, we don't all have to be just cowed every single time we run into these fools.
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah.
All right,
okay.
So do you want to? So let's, because Geechee's coming at noon, right? All right. So the power and legal battle for human rights, and I did this to you on purpose. So I didn't put the timestamps in on purpose until this morning because I wanted your raw response.
So,
because I didn't know if you had time to watch.
I did watch it. I watched it, and I watched. So you had me reaching out to a number of people this morning.
Okay.
Because I did watch this video, but I also watched at least a good portion of the Nora Ericott video, and I know Nora a little bit and reached out to her, and hopefully she'll come through at some point.
That would be dope.
And then I also know, at least indirectly through comrades and through, I think we crossed paths here or there. I don't know, TJ Whitaker with the can never remember that.
MAPSO Freedom School.
MAPSO Freedom School. So I reached out to him. Huh?
You know I know, TJ.
So I'm sure you do, but I was just like, I just took it as an opportunity.
MAPSO is the organization that I was talking about at the start of this show.
Oh, now I don't remember what you were saying though. What was I don't
meeting.
Oh wow.
Because I'm about to put something. Sorry, y'all. I know I hate when he does it to me.
Oh wow. Okay. So, but I did reach out to TJ too. So
I just put something in the chat. I just put something in the chat for you.
Oh wow. Y'all are funny, man.
I can't. Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
That's crazy. So when he reads the email, he'll be cracking up too.
He'll be cracking up, and he'll watch this.
Right.
He'll also be cracking up.
And he'll be cracking up. All right. But I should have known. I
put in the chat.
Yeah, I should have known. That's wild. Okay. All right. Yeah.
All right. So.
But yeah, I did. Okay, so I'll get to this timestamp, the first one, and while you tell us what we're looking at here.
All right, so we're gonna let's start with actually Tayeb Ali, who's with the International Center of Justice for Palestine, because they're actually his interview and Nora Erkat's interview, funny enough, talk about the same exact thing, but from two different angles. And I am curious if either of these angles can be used in the way that Dhoruba has been talking about with regard to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. So
okay,
this is an interview from Middle East. I'm going to forget the name of the actual channel, and that's a shame. Sorry. But Middle East Eye.
Middle East Eye.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they do phenomenal. Like, there's an interview on here. Hillary Clinton was on The View talking about Palestine. And there is a piece on this channel where he goes through every single statement she made and proved it a lie. And it was phenomenally done.
Right on.
This is my new channel that I've been watching and kind of, seeing what's going on. So anyway, so Tayeb Ali and his organization, the International Center of Justice for Palestine, has been working on the legal strategy for trying to, stop genocide. So if you want to go to the first one where they're like what they're doing with the historical work and the ICC first.
All right.
Complaints and advocacy documents for the last couple of years, and quite powerful documents. So what we do is we have been compiling complaints about the last 75 years of issues in Palestine and submitting them to the ICC. Now, the ICC only has a mandate since 2014 to investigate crimes, but the period before 2014 is crucial to put what happened after 2014 into its correct context. You can't just start at 2014 in the same way as you can't start October the 7th. So we have complaints about Shirin Abu Akleh, for example, for journalists. We have complaints about destruction of property. We have complaints about heritage being destroyed. We have land grab issues, settlement issues, prisoner issues. We have Israel has this practice of holding deceased Palestinians' bodies and not returning to their families. We have a complaint about that. So we have these complaints, and we partner with other organizations that already are doing that work. So, for example, we partner with Al-Haq sometimes and various other Palestinian organizations, mainly to give them support where they need it or to work on a project jointly. And so we went into this situation kind of already at some steam, right? So we were already litigating and advocating for Palestinian rights and investigating violations by Israel against Palestinians.
You can.
Oh yeah, I went past. My bad.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So
no, it's StreamYard's fault. It's the poor studio layout. You can't do stuff.
It's hard to
but
see.
Yeah,
I know. It's hard to see. So.
But yeah, that was
So that was interesting, right? So they're going into the historical, the ICC. I have my own fight with the ICC based on that commission report where they want the ICC to charge the U.S. with, crimes against humanity based on the way they allow the armed agents of the state to treat descendants of Africans in this country, right? So that's part of the conversation. But where he is taking this is an interesting path, because I thought this was really going to be about this, like, national thing, and how do you get the countries charged and all this thing. So go to the next one so that people can understand where they're actually going with this, because that's the part of it that I'm like, okay, I didn't know this was even an option.
Lisa Nanda included, right? And so we issued a letter putting politicians on notice that they were running the risk that they would be prosecuted for being complicit in war crimes if they carried on with that rhetoric. Now, one of the conditions of a politician being complicit is that they have to be put on notice, right?
First.
So the letters that we wrote in private put them on notice, but these public letters, which went viral, everybody was talking about it all around the world actually, put them on public notice. Within hours, we saw them move from their position of complete support for Israel to now starting to talk about international humanitarian law needs to be respected. So that's the first thing that we did, right? And it was important. Now they can accept or deny that it was because of our letters, but what they won't deny is that they don't want to be prosecuted in a British court for complicity in war crimes, which is where they were heading, right? And I would have been, my team would have been presenting complaints to Scotland Yard and the ICC about individual politicians who we consider to be complicit. But something really interesting happened. Some of them lowered their rhetoric, accepted. Some of them didn't. And we are preparing case files with regards to those politicians. Yeah, we are.
Do you want to name names?
No, because we are.
You can stop it. So, who knew? Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I did not know that. And I saw that and thought that was fascinating, and loved that the attempt is being made. And my family and I a couple years ago went to the Hague, and we went to the ICC. And I remember we went through the whole little tour there, and basically all you see is a bunch of Africans being tried for war crimes. Mm-hmm. And then the African custodian brother who was running the spot, I do remember on the way out, I was like, I said, has anybody from the West, because it was like one or two Eastern Europeans. Mm-hmm. And I said, has anyone from the West ever been prosecuted? And he just looked down at me like I was crazy. It was like, because he was very tall. He was like, no. And I was
right.
Just,
so
that's probably why they think that they don't have to respond.
Right.
Yeah.
So someone in the chat said, in what world would a British court prosecute politicians for war crimes? That's not what he's presenting. So that that's not the argument. The argument is that in their speaking in support of what Israel is doing, they are aiding and abetting war crimes.
Genocide, yeah.
So
and that would result in a trial that he and his team will look to be bringing.
Right. So here's the other piece of what they're doing is the last timestamp. The 52-55 one. Yeah.
So and this again is him working with a team on behalf of the UN.
I don't think he's part of the UN. No, I'm confused.
You're right.
They're an outside legal group.
Mm-hmm. Right. Sorry about that. And that they would be bringing under the International Criminal Court law of promoting genocide as a public figure or journalist.
Right.
That they would be using it because he's from, he gets into the whole thing, he's from Yorkshire to be specific, not just London, not England or London. And that because he would be in England, that's where the trial would ostensibly take place. Not that it would be England or the British Crown taking people to, right? I think, we're just clarifying. Okay, right on. All right, here we go.
Might intervene and stop that. That might happen. But you know what? It's not just the West anymore, right? The world's changing. Geopolitics of the world is changing. Now we've got the global South, we've got India, we've got China, we've got countries across the globe that have been criticized for decades for not applying international humanitarian law in their own way. And now they're seeing that the West is actually only paying lip service to it. Well, I'm going to encourage them to apply international humanitarian law to their judicial systems. And so we're engaging in conversations with them. And when this politician that I talked about from the UK who thinks, oh, I've done my 5 years, I've now got this fantastic job in some investment, like I said, travel to Malaysia or Singapore or Colombia, Venezuela, just got to watch out. Yeah, because they might. And they're likely to. And one of the reasons they might do is because they might say, these are your laws. These are the laws you've been hitting us over the head with for ages. It's not going to be safe for any political actor, military actor, that has engaged in war crimes. And as far as, it doesn't matter, I was going to say, as long as I live, it's probably a bad thing to say. As long as ICJP and lawyers like me exist, and there's plenty of us, and organizations like ICJP exist, and once we've set that track off, it works by itself. And
so
because I thought exactly the same thing as he was talking.
Right.
My man.
Right. Because that's the part of it. So in a way, one of the things that I feel like this entire situation has really brought to the forefront, right, is the understanding that the Western world and this government in particular, along with the Canadian government, along with the UK government, along with some of the European countries, they have all been telling everybody else how to behave, right? Like, you're doing this wrong. You're treating these people wrong. You're not doing fair elections. You're not. Meanwhile, they have never been in compliance with the international laws and expectations. But this particular situation has put that out in front in a way that I don't think has ever happened to my knowledge, right? It has not, I mean, in the face of literal genocide, death, destruction, occupation, apartheid, all those things, the United States had the nerve to be the solo voice of dissent against stopping it, right? And it has created a situation in which people must ask the question, well, wait a minute. I thought you were the beacon of hope and truth and fairness and democracy, and right? Like, people have to ask that question if they even take a second to realize how hypocritical it all is. And it is fascinating to me to watch these things happen and to see some of the responses. And every time I see something like this, a conversation like this, I immediately think of Daruba. And I immediately think to myself, is this something that's applicable? Like, if a mayor gets on TV and promotes the armed agents of their state, and then the armed agents of their state turn around and kill somebody, have they then aided and abetted? I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I don't know, but it's an interesting question.
And I can't wait to see attorneys really grapple with that question, or to the extent they haven't, or put us onto the work that's been done, because that is, if I, to a certain extent, many and several, at least not, I don't know about many, but there's a tradition of just Black American struggle equating what has been happening here as genocide. Mm-hmm. Again, I even make it, when you look at the UN argument definition of genocide around just cultural destruction and distortion, I made the argument in the hip hop context that just what's being done to hip hop and the distortion of Black expression is genocide, is part of a genocide. So because if I understand correctly, once it's defined as genocide, as is the case, because that's what he was talking about in the context of this discussion of what's happening to the Palestinians. If you can get it defined as that, I think that would probably, it feels like that to, in my inexpert thought, would be the hurdle to convince an illegal argument that first Black people are suffering genocide, and then when you advocate policing of Black people, you are advocating. But I love
right. And Ricky
let's make that
put a
argument.
question in, and I read it when she wrote it, and then so many people started writing that. Okay, so she wrote, if you all return to the discussion on genocide, can you maybe discuss how that may impact the current We Charge Genocide Tribunals and petition that's happening now, referring to the work of Jalil Muntakim and Spirit of Mandela? And I feel like this is all lock in step, right? Like that's part of what I know what my goal is I want this to be the conversation. And I would love to help find a way to make this the conversation and to raise this contradiction that if people look at the international rules, which is exactly, you know, I keep coming back to that ICC and that report that Professor Campbell was a part of. And the reason I always keep circling back to that is because they outlined it specifically in there, how the current behavior of the armed agents of the state, with the support of the state and the government and the funding of the state and the government, are contributing to the genocide of people in this country. Right. So I'm not sure if that's what, I don't know what Ricky was hoping to go, but I mean, if this is something that's really going right now, if that's what they're pushing for, then yes. But it's something that if that's what the Spirit of Mandela is taking on, then and
the documentary is on its way here. So yeah, I think all of those efforts should be, and that's sort of what I was pointing to, that tradition of We Charge Genocide, get that on the books again, and then make that part of the legal argument. I think that's a fantastic line of reasoning.
Yes. And Ricky will have to forgive me because I've got so many different things in my head. I know there was a tribunal, but I think the ICC, the International Commission report that I always have in my brain was separate and going simultaneously. So that's the interesting part. And I am curious if there was any communication and connection between those two things, because I just don't know. To be honest, I don't know. But so David Silberg, funny enough, was like, there was a great interview with her. And that's exactly the next set of clips is the interview. So
yeah,
we can go to the next set, and I think we'll have time. We can always, I'm sure when Geechee gets on, he can either patiently wait or he can jump in and talk if he wants to. But
yeah.
So Naura Arakat, who I'm thrilled to pieces that you know her, because she was next on my list of emails today, and now I don't have to.
So we I mean, it's a circle of radicals in DC through which I met her some 20 some odd years ago, and we remained, I don't know, at least. And she actually co-writes a lot of stuff, or has written a number of things with a Turkish sister I went to grad school with, who was just brilliant. And I think so. There's all these little overlaps, but we did have a little bit of a disagreement over Afro-pessimism. So and Palestinian, like I thought but when she was here last time, but I'm a big I'm an admirer of her work, or the efforts largely that she's in the stances she tries to represent in some of these media spaces. So we'll see if she has. This interview suggested that, and I understand that there's a difficulty with capacity in taking all these interviews and writing all this stuff. So I understand if she's not able to add us to the mix. But yeah, we.
Right.
Yeah.
So some of the things, and a lot of this was understandably personal for her, but some of the things that she said when I pulled this out, for me, it hit in a way that I was like, we have to, because the like I was explaining, they are looking at these legal battles, her and the previous interview, from opposite angles, in my opinion. So, but the first thing is just something she says about the law and power that I felt like.
Right, and she is an attorney,
Right.
and she does this. So, and she teaches in the
So
Africana
if you-
Studies at Rutgers, and
at Rutgers, right? So if you can play the first clip, just so people understand what I'm saying.
The law works against us, right? And I say in my book, law is power. Law is power, and to the extent that it could be used in the service of emancipatory struggles, it has to be done so on behalf of very, strategic political campaigns, not the other way around, right? Because if law is power, then our primary concern needs to be power. How do we grow it? What do we make of it? And in that context, we can use the law merely as a tactic, but not as a strategy.
Okay. So right. Because it's interesting, right? Like if you really it is very, very interesting if you step back and understand what she's saying, right? It's a tactic. All of these things are tactics. And all you can do is keep tactically working against the system to see if something that you do works to put a crack in it. So, but then she goes on to talk about the role of the law with regard to this international work. So if we can go to the next clip.
Yeah, and Geechee, whenever you want to jump in, just jump in. Unless I don't know, maybe he's waiting for the grand introduction. But either way, let's go to the next clip.
He didn't send no bio or nothing.
No. Man, please, just get out of here. Just jump in and let us play this next clip. Yeah, just fade in and jump in. Stop playing. It's like double dutch. Just jump in. We don't have time to stop.
Like I do with you and Diallo. I got it. Let's get it.
Oh wait, I didn't. I hold on. I had it queued up and didn't put it up on the screen. That's my bad. Hold on. Like you do. Like you do with me and Diallo.
And I can. So, and just so people in the chat, including Ricky and because they're talking about this historical, whatever stuff she's been saying before. I've never heard this woman speak ever. Right?
Oh wait, she's been saying stuff that people disagree with. I'm shocked. No way.
So it's all I want. Ricky or somebody send me the thing so I can watch this fight that happened. Now I can't not mind you, Ricky. Stop. So because I'm curious if I'm curious if the current things that are happening have caused a shift in her movements. Because I'm genuinely curious about this. So anyway, so go to the next clip. Because
Member
this is interesting.
of the ICC, of which now it is, and it's recognized that we should never believe that these institutions are going to work in our favor, right? That these very institutions, by their nature, even looking at the document that established the ICC, the 1998 Rome Statute, in the words of scholar Kamari Maxine Clark, enshrines white supremacy. Of the core crimes that can be prosecuted, colonialism is not one of them. The fact that there's a temporal limit on what can be prosecuted means that all colonial atrocities are beyond, actual prosecution. The fact that there's a complementarity clause which stipulates that the first right of jurisdiction goes to a national court before it becomes the ICC's jurisdiction means that the most advanced, states will probably never, have to appear in the court if they can prosecute, if they have the means and the will to prosecute themselves. I can go on and on, but we know this from the text. And now we know this from experience that since the ICC has been established, it's only indicted, Arab and African heads of state and accused with the exception of Slobodan Milosevic and now the arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin. So knowing this, how is it? And I was part of a team that actually filed an ICC petition. So that's really a contradiction, right? But how is it that we appreciate this possibility and still use these tools? Well, the way that I use this with my team is to agitate. We use that as an entry point in order to create the controversy that now needed to be addressed. Now it became, a top line media question. Now we can actually make, and we could before without the petition, but the petition certainly helped. But that gave us the platform and the opportunity to make our charges.
Yeah.
And to call for arrest warrants even before we appear in court, which is probably not going to, happen anytime soon.
You can pause it now. So I thought it was interesting because that interview with Tayeb Ali, I listened to before this one, right? It was interesting to me, the two different, because he says it somewhere in the interview that he still has faith in the ICC, right? Whereas her take is obviously like this, you can't use the system to actually fix anything, right? Like the system is there as a tool that you can use to try and agitate to get people to understand what the problems are within the system, which I thought was fascinating. Ricky, he's not random. That's actually he does a whole show with I don't know, is it Vendoweiss? Mandoweiss?
Yeah.
So this is a new show.
And they apparently have they go back. Apparently he's apparently a very active guy in these circles. So what was I going to say? Oh, right. The piece about colonialism. That's what had me. I reposted it again this morning. That Laura Nader presentation that I went to years ago that I still appreciate, where she was talking about the book Plunder, and the rule of law is itself an extension of empire. That part of the process of colonization is the establishment of the colonizer's rule of law, which just basically gives legal sanction to the theft, the murder, et cetera, and so forth. So, of course, to Norder's point, they are beyond prosecution. I was thinking that line from JFK where he's like, that's how you have a coup d'etat, when the people who commit the crime cannot be prosecuted. They are the power structure.
Right.
So that's what this is. Not that I agree that killing Kennedy was the coup itself, but blah blah blah. But I love that point.
Right, it's a fascinating. It's fascinating to really listen to legal minds discuss this, right? Like I'm not an attorney, right? Although I do so much research stuff. I've been told I should go back to school and go to law school. But listening to the multiple routes in which people are trying to find a way to stop genocide, right? And how many legal routes can't work, even though you would think that legally genocide would be unacceptable, right? One would think.
Renee, you should consider that, though. I just saw, what was it, like a year or two ago, I saw that movie about the true story about the white woman that becomes a lawyer, the poor white woman, like a working class white woman becomes a lawyer to get her brother out of prison for something he had been given life for something he didn't do.
Yes. Yeah,
and then she goes to law school, wins the case, gets him out, then he gets drunk and falls off a wall and dies.
Right. I do remember that.
I second that. You can be called Liddy Renee. I think it's a good idea.
And start freeing the people, and hopefully we don't collectively get drunk and fall off the wall.
Fall off the wall. My mother has been saying this to me for a while now, and I told her that if we're in a position where me going back to law school allows me to be the type of attorney that can only take pro bono cases and fight against the system and free people, then I'll do it. But that has to be the path. That's not the path. I ain't doing it.
It's not irony. That is not irony.
All right. So one last clip. And sorry, Geach, you're gonna survive. One more.
Let's
so this last piece about the repression kind of circles back to what we were talking about with MAPSO and what's happening in schools and all these things. But I feel like what she says is important for everyone to understand where this is going and why people need to be very, very cautious of just sitting back and letting all the things that are happening, just letting it happen. We're gonna have to, people are gonna have to learn to be brave. They really are gonna have to learn to be, because they can't fire all of us. That's my theory. They can't fire everybody. So if everybody decides to be brave, then none of us will suffer.
Literally tried to liken Free Palestine to Hail Hitler. My God. For us, this is so absurd, but it's also the beginning, I think, of a much worse moment to come in terms of our repression. And so we need to prepare for that and not to be disheartened by that either. But that tightening that I think is on the horizon, that violence, that crude coercive force that's on the horizon, that's far more crude even than what we've seen, is an indication of the absolute failure of the moral authority of Zionism. That if there was an argument to be made that now it lacks moral authority that can sustain it, and instead it's outright coercive force, to the point where Zionists in the United States, who are a minority and have the most to lose through, clamping down on free speech, are advocating for clamping down on free speech, right? They are working against their own interests. They are strengthening a police state that will not just attack Black, brown, and indigenous peoples, but that will attack everybody. And so those of us who are paying attention know that, the critical amongst us know that, the people who are not speaking precisely because they know that. And they're afraid of this repression. But what it also indicates is that there is a common understanding that there is a lid being placed on, and a lid placed on that much pressure cannot be maintained.
You had a note that you might want to stop it or pause it there. Did you? I think you're muted, Renee.
I sure was. So what she says explains what's happening. And what she's about to say is how she feels, like what she sees as like what's coming in order to really fight what's happening right now. And I think it's the same, it's interesting what she's about to say, but I wasn't sure how much time we were going to have. And I think we have time to listen to it as long as Geechee's okay. But it's important, like it is so, I don't know how often and how many times I'm gonna have to tell people we cannot sit back and silently allow this shit to continue. You can't. If you are silently watching people die in Palestine, if you are silently watching children get buried in rubble in the Congo, if you are silently watching while Kenya and Jamaica prepare to send troops to Haiti, if you are silently watching Exxon make their maneuvers alongside of the US government with regard to what's happening between Guyana and Venezuela, like all of these things are all connected. Right? It's all the same powers at the top that are creating these situations. And if you are silently watching it and pretending that it's not happening, then you are part of the problem. And we can't keep being silent, period. We cannot. So, but since we have time, go ahead and play the rest of it, just because I feel like what she says is critical.
Impossible. So of course nothing will be the same, right? The question is, how do we define that time and define that change? I've placed it in the locus of a generation that has similarly identified, that adults have failed them, have betrayed them on issues of climate, gun control, racial justice, the protection of transgender life, on gender justice. These people, 18 to 35, but also much younger, who aren't counted amongst the constituents who are being polled, are the future. are the future. There is no way the universe they create after experiencing this moment looks like the universe we live in now. It's impossible. It's impossible. And so that's where I see this change coming about. I see it as being generational. I see it as being iterative. I see it as also being preceded by a tremendous more amount of pressure and repression than we've experienced so far. And I just encourage folks to continue to take care of one another, to continue in the legacies of, that we have learned, especially during COVID, where folks learned to take care of one another in the failure of government and in government betrayal, especially in the moment of Black uprising, where abolition became mainstreamed almost, in a matter of weeks, to think about what does it mean, right? In the words of Ruth Wilson Gilmore and also Miriam Kaba, this concept of creating life-affirming conditions. Life-affirming conditions. And so that's where I'm at on this.
Life-affirming conditions. Just saying. Just saying.
I hope she's right about the trajectory in terms of the relative optimism.
Me too.
I struggle with that, but I hope she's right about that.
Yeah.
She's definitely right about
the repression.
The repression coming, because the globe is clear. Mm-hmm. Israel is wrong. To what extent they attach that to their own struggles or other radical, analyses, I don't know for sure. But the world is clear. Mm-hmm. Israel is wrong, and the messaging ain't working. So we all know what comes next.
Right. And so, as someone who works in a high school, right, and I am seeing young people who want to be a voice, but who are watching what happens to their parents and to adults who choose not to be silent, and they're afraid because they don't want to get in trouble, right? They don't want to get called to the office. They don't want to, all these things, but this is all part of being brave, right? Like, it's all part of, I stood in front of a group of kids and I was like, listen, this very well, I'm not tenured. This very well can get me out of this job if somebody who's in this room right now goes and complains. But I'm just going to have to eat that if that's the end result, because you have to stand on truth if you stand on anything, right? And my thought process in all things is to be true, like to speak my truth. And whatever consequence comes from being a person who speaks my truth, I'm just gonna have to live with that. And it's, it's just gonna be what it is, because I can't be a person who pretends that I don't see what I see. Like, you're not gonna tell me that what I'm seeing is made up in my mind.
That's interesting. I can't remember who. Wow, I can't remember who said this last night, but on that millennials are killing capitalism thing for discussion for Kwesi, somebody made the point that the youth today doesn't have this sort of stranglehold on them politically that my generation would have had post Black Power era and the fears of COINTELPRO. They made the point that COINTELPRO, was it Daquis saying this? I feel like it. But it was that the memory of COINTELPRO, they were arguing, was lost or was fading to the point where they didn't have the fears that my generation and younger and older, slightly older, would have had, knowing or being taught the histories of COINTELPRO. And I hope that was correct. but I'm not. But I wasn't sure, so it's interesting to hear you say what you're saying there.
So we'll see. I don't know. David, be safe out there, man.
It was Daquis. Thank you. Yeah.
So we brought Geechee on.
Thanks, Dave.
So we can make our shift. So Geechee and I.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Before.
Yeah.
So I hear that idea of like different in terms of fair of COINTELPRO, but I always thought this idea of like it's more ideological now, where people could, you know how we might call people agents and they're not paid, but it's more of a cultural mentality that's happening right now, to where people who in good faith, in their idea, good faith, will be doing the work of COINTELPRO. And so maybe the fair is different. It's like people are not afraid of that, but it's kind of like, again, like y'all was talking about in Andor, the way in which the prison was ran made them feel like there was free, but there was not free at all, right? And one could argue even more repressed. So I hear the fear being gone, but yeah, I guess I struggle with the idea that it's so disjointed and so much confusion to where people are kept in line very easily and or by the people who they're celebrating. So, for instance, Charlemagne can get on TV and say somebody who's hating on him is COINTELPRO. And so now you're looking at COINTELPRO as the person who's hating on getting money. So it's like, I don't.
But that's also why they let him do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of the things, and Jared, you talk about this a lot when we talk about like, entertainment and movies and all these things. Like, they always allow certain people and certain ideas and certain things to move forward and to become public and popular and all these things. And it's twofold. It's one, to give this sense that some things are allowed, right? Like, some people are allowed to say the things, and some people are allowed to be, against government, and to give you this false sense that you're allowed to do these things, right? And then at the same time, they allow certain people to move forward so that they can point to that person and say, see, look, they were able to do it, right? Even though they know that's not achievable for the majority of people. So it's all to create this continued propaganda and false notion that we live in a place where people are allowed to thrive, and where people are allowed to do the things, and where people are allowed to make money, and they're allowed to pursue their dreams, and they're allowed to fight the system. But don't be a teacher who signs your signatures with Free Palestine, because you're gonna lose your job, and then they're gonna kick your child out of school behind you because they were only there because you worked at the school. This literally happened in Florida, right? Like, so, like, this ain't.
You got your homeboy calling Trump a fascist and his brother in the same sentence. So,
right.
Oh, wow.
My good brother, fascist Trump.
Right.
West. So
it's wild. So, all right. So
Wow.
Geechee and I
That's the
text
segue.
Jared. I text Jared after we talked, Geechee, because I was like, oh, this is great. So Geechee and I had a really long conversation about policy and electoral politics and political education and all of these things. And it started because of the after party. That's where the conversation literally started, because of Jared's after party idea. And so I felt, especially since we've been having these conversations about my shift in wanting political education around electoral politics to focus really on more, not so much on go vote, this is why you have to vote, this is why voting's important, but on actually organizing around the things that would make voting a thing, right? Would make it something that's useful. So if you can organize people around whatever thing it is within the community that is necessary, and find a way to utilize the system to achieve that thing, or to push that thing into a conversation, then you have established some sense of power within your community where you can utilize policy, right? Now, whether or not this turns into electoral politics being relevant and necessary, I do and have always firmly believed that you should participate in things that are local to you, because those are the things that are most critical to your own immediate material conditions, right? So if you don't know that there's a referendum on your ballot that's going to change whatever circumstance in your community, so you don't go and you don't participate in the choice on that thing, you are now actively leaving the decision to that thing happening and not happening to people that you might not want to be making that decision. So, it's back to my same conundrum. So Geechee, do you want to explain like what the whole thing was that you were bringing?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and Jared talked about this maybe 2 years ago, because it's something that I've been trying to work on in every city that I've organized. And then I made some progress with my brother before he transitioned. And then once he transitioned, it kind of like, I just didn't have the energy. But so Maynard Jackson in Atlanta, one of the only decent ideas that I won't say only, a good idea that he had was this thing called the Black Voter app, right? And so for those who don't know Maynard, his name is on the Jackson Hatfield Airport. And even the story in getting his name on there was something that people in Atlanta or people around the country celebrate. Because when he became a mayor, he was like, he called all the banks. He said, I'm gonna need a Black person on the board by this time, or I'm moving my money somewhere else. And he actually threatened and came through with some of those threats. But then also he said he needed a Black contractor to build the airport. And they kept looking, they couldn't find, they kept looking, they couldn't find. And finally he was like, you're not looking hard enough or whatever. And then they said, we looked everywhere. And he said, well, would you say the airport is a big ass driveway? And they was like, well, basically. He said, well, I know some Black people who do driveways. Anyway, so he got some Black contractors in there to help with that. But one of the things he thought of was a Black voter card, right? Who would have 10 to 20 policies on the card that directly impact Black folks. And this will get people away from those times when those politicians come on stage with a Beyonce or Mike Tyson, whoever, and say, we're going to vote for so-and-so. That the people in the crowd say, well, what did you score on the Black card? Because on the policies, you only can answer yes or no. So do you support reinstating voting rights to convicted felons who paid their debt to society? Yes. Legalization of marijuana? Yes. And then in that way, you're able to, one, have Black people in a space where political sophistication is growing because they know the policies that we're dealing with. Example, when we brought the sister on who was running for mayor in Charleston, at home, we got a bunch of people supporting her and other people not. And one of the sisters that I know was supporting her, I asked her, like, well, what policy made you support Mika? And she couldn't answer that question. And so the goal is to get people away from personalities, people, and parties, and more on policy. And so again, once I heard the after party concept for Jared, when Jared was talking about, that's when I said we have to, connect with Jared and talk. And then I saw y'all talking about it again, and I was like, yeah, let me talk to Renee, because that's another person who we can kind of get this going. And as my tagline in the at the bottom of my name is "Who all gonna be there?" That's what Black people ask when you say, "Are you going to the party?" You say, "Who all gonna be there?" So that's, I'm just more. If Jared gonna be there, Renee gonna be there, Ricky gonna be there, I gotta be there. But so that's why I'm here.
Sorry.
Right on. No, I love it.
If Rolling gonna be there, then I'm sorry.
No, you're right. You're right. And so Jared, you have a thought before I start rambling?
No, go ahead.
So my thing, I agree, right? And I think putting policy over people is very important and it's necessary. And I feel like if you have, 10 things on your card that are these are the political policies that we really want people to take a stance on, right? And you as the individual can say, okay, I'm going to rank these from 1 to 10, right? And you have to have at least my number 1 through my number 7. If you don't have my 8, 9, 10, I can still rock with you. But you have to have at least my 1 through 7. And people can make an informed decision, not based on party or who the person is or who they got up on stage with, but who they what things they actually support and are behind as far as improving your material conditions. And your decision may be none of these people fit my fit my thing. So I ain't voting for none of them. I'm just going to skip down to the referendums at the bottom of the ballot, you know, and that's okay too. But something that Geechee and I, when we talked, we kind of circled to was this idea that sometimes people also don't understand which policies are related to the current problem and circumstance in which they are fighting and surviving through, right? Like people may not realize that there is, you know, a policy or a decision that's being made by a city council person that's affecting which water where they're getting their water from. Mm-hmm. And that's why their water is the way that it is, right? So part of it also has to be really making an effort as an organization or an organizer to learn what problems are existing within a community and to backtrack that problem to a specific policy or decision so that they know what fight to fight. Because that's also part of the problem. People don't always know where the fight is and where the battle is. So part of this conversation with the after party also has to be engaging people in a process of research and education to understand where the problem begins and not just to focus on, you know, what this is the thing we got to fight about this thing now. And we got to go out there and we got to march and do whatever, but you don't even know who or what battle you're fighting because you don't even understand, you know, the underlayer of what the problem was.
Right. So also, I think, so two things I put I side with in the chat. So one of the sites that made me think about like, oh, we should do something like this, right? For a while, I used to play with this. I'll go vote. Well, not vote. I'll take the quiz on the policies that I deal with. And then at the end, you'll get a score and then you'll see what president or candidate score like you. So for instance, your policies might more be in line. And again, this site is not perfect. It's actually not that good at all. But I thought to have the Black voter app.
These questions are wild.
Yeah. So, but I thought to have something like that to where you can see nationally and locally what people side with your politics or what people score on your platform. And then on the page as well is myths, right? So we started working on it. I think I sent you an email, Renee, of the website or the app will have the policies and the people who support those policies, who fight for those policies. They'll have different educational things on there like myth busting, Black buying power, model minority, you know, all these other things. Because I think what happens is like people get into this idea. Jupiter always talk about game theory, and people get caught up in this game, and people also get to the point where they know they ain't gonna win, so they stop playing the game, right? Again, I blame Ricky. Andor, I watch all them shits. I watch all of them and I watch y'all. But if you remember when they was in prison, they woke up every day playing a game. They're competing to see who can make the most. Oh, we got first place. And you could almost forget your ass in prison. I mean, not really, but you just focus on the game, right? And so I think even with these things, with sports, you don't know how tired I get of like my homeboys and some of the women too. We won, like with the Cowboys or my Niners, and like they got whole analysis of what's going on.
No, I used to do that too, and I fully support that, by the way. So
I'm not gonna say I didn't do it.
because fans invest as much as anybody else as the players. Stop.
I used to be a Giants fan. Let me clear that up. I was a Giants fan. You know, Plexical Birds and all them my peoples. But the we part just it digs at me like the we it's not we. And so I think we can massage game theory and know that that's where our people at. Okay, how do we get skin in the game? Now you know that the dude or the woman that you're voting for is responsible for making sure your water clean so your baby don't got eczema and all this other stuff. And so having that type of conversation to where people will be emotionally connected to it. And so instead of being on downtown in Kentucky tearing up some shit because the Kentucky Wildcats lost, you could do that shit when your people don't do what they say they're gonna do. You got a tool to hold them accountable now, as opposed to ain't not we can do. Might as well just go to work. Same shit, different day. So I think this is more of a tool not to free us, right? Because I think that's the other thing. Like when you think about voting, they were like, oh, it don't free us. Well, we're not talking about being free, more so highlighting the contradictions and how it connects to the larger struggle is what the conversation should be. And also how it can connect organizers around different issues, because I can assure you any radical organizer on the left can tell you some policies that impact them. And if we're better, it will help them organize better as well. Like I can be sure of that. So yeah, that's it.
Renee, just real quick, I think if it's at all possible, I think you got a lock going across your mic. So I don't want people to miss all the gems, if at all, if that's something that can be.
Yeah, sorry.
But no, just a little thing. But so first of all, I agree and I appreciate both of you for all of this. What the heightening of contradictions, I fully agree with, is a point to this, and much like I would argue about and complain about the business community, I'm not arguing with the after party or any of this that this is the solution. In fact, part of it is admittedly a little bit of my pettiness, because I've become increasingly frustrated with people telling me at the last minute, Jared, sign on so that we can, support Bernie Sanders, or Jared, sign on to this or that effort. I want us to be more proactive. And then one thing that I remember from the first Obama campaign, I don't know, I didn't put any science to this, but I felt like there was this tremendous wave of people that I knew from the most radical of black spaces who would customarily have dismissed voting, who ultimately voted for Obama out of some, whatever they justified it as, symbolic, or this is our chance, or whatever. And I'm like, so if we're going to do all of that, then the last straw, though, was in preparing our response to Manning Marable's, or what the book attributed to Manning Marable. And when I went back and read what Malcolm actually was saying about the vote, and juxtaposing it to what Viking Press put in that Marable book, it was such a stark difference that it, for me, added this little bit of clarity. Like, in other words, the after party is not a new idea. It's a rebranding of really what I was reading from Malcolm. And Malcolm was simply saying what I got from Glenn Ford with the bright lines and the scorecards with Letitia Stills when she was working with Black Agenda doing that was my version of all of this. And it was, if we're going to be participating anyway, which of course we are, and like Kwame Ture said, look, if you're going to burn tires and burn stuff when they kill us, add a little prep to it. If you know what's going to happen, just and turn it into something else. So that's how I feel with the vote. We know so many of us just drag ourselves off. Either we vote for the Democrat, or we vote for the Green, or whoever. We vote for Cornel West. We vote for Claudia and Karina. We do it as some sort of, so I'm just advocating, kind of like what Claudia and them are advocating now, organize it in advance a little bit, put some thought to it. And then ultimately what I got from Malcolm was, going back in that revisiting that, is we have to be not only producing our own standards and platforms and bright lines, but the candidates themselves. So that there's no question of, we don't have to go to someone with a scorecard. We have already produced the one who will pass the scorecard.
Right. So a couple things, as I mentioned about the sister who was running for mayor, who initially came on and told me she was an anti-imperialist candidate. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. And then we talked a little bit. And then by the time, which we know she wasn't going to win, right? But by the time she wins, she supports the white guy who is associated with the Moms of Liberty, right? And so and then that person talks about the rigid radical left, and when you talk, they call you a purist, right? And so I feel like this is a tool that allows you to remove a lot of the purist language, because now you are talking about policy. And once you talk about policy, you can again expose them on why they gravitate towards people, personalities, pigment, and some other shit, right? Because now we got the policies here. Because a lot of times when you get in a conversation with liberals and other people, you're not really talking their language in terms of like, this is the public policy and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're more of giving them, as they say, ideology, and that's why they're calling you a purist. And then the idea with this tool, I believe, again, as I said before, it's an apparatus to unify the black left. But as me and my brother was working on, the goal was to either build up political sophistication and take this thrust to a third party, or if it meant building another party. Again, that's why when you said after party, I was like, yeah, let's go talk to him. But I think it's a long game, because while you're building up the political sophistication of the people, then you will develop politicians out of there. And then you could run your own people, and you don't really got, like you said, you don't have to, but the scorecard is more so of a crutch, but also a tool to do multiple things at once. But yeah.
All right, on.
In sign me up.
No, so I mean, so listen, we got 29 minutes before Warrior class starts. Right. And again, I don't want to
talk about, but can we talk about, since this is all in line, can we keep Geechee on and talk about the talk about the interview, the Jill Stein iMWiL? Did you get a chance to
I watched most of it. Yeah. I did watch most of it. Yeah. Was there?
I did it to you again. This is me on purpose, because I like to see your reactions. I don't want you to watch stuff. I want you to watch what I want you to watch when I want you to watch it, so I can watch it.
Oh, I see. I got you. Okay. All right. So so the link it's already set to a time. Was that done on purpose?
No, that's probably just where I
like, so where do you
in there underneath it, that 1847 that should be
I don't see it.
You don't?
All I see is the link. I don't see a timestamp.
You don't? Oh, that's weird.
All right, there it is. Yeah, okay. I do. Oh, my bad. I found it. Okay.
So that time, I don't, now I'm like, wait, hold on. Sorry, it should be 1241.
1241?
12, no. Ooh, hold on. 1847 to 2141 is what it should be. I typed in the wrong thing. My bad.
All right. No, you had it at 1847, but here we go. All right, so let me get it right there.
This is them talking about what the Green Party is doing and why they've moved in this current direction. So
systematically dismantle the Rainbow Coalition. So here we have Cornel West, who, as he said himself, was well known. He said nobody knew the Green Party, but everybody knows me. Well, African, that's the point. Okay, that's the tool you had to make history. Okay, so this opportunity was there, because with 40% of the Democrats prepared to consider a third party, with independents that were leaning toward a third party, with the dissatisfaction and the people have the Democratic Party, the disrespect that the Democrat Party leadership has for Black folks. This was all of the elements were together for something really historic to occur. But as Jill indicated, for reasons that still aren't completely clear, our dear brother decided, and it wasn't a conversation that we were a part of, that he would embark on a quest to be an independent candidate, and so he basically moved away from the weapon he had, which was his party, a party that has the experience of getting on ballots. If it was that easy to get on ballots, then all of these third and fourth and fifth parties who've been running for years would be on more than one or two or whatever ballots. It's a science to this, and you got to build experience. And say what you might about the Green Party. The Green Party knows how to get on the ballot, okay? And the Green Party doesn't just run at the presidential level. They run candidates at every level of a government. The last thing, this struggle here is a struggle not just for advancing a candidate. I think Jill understands and way her campaign is being developed, and the way we ran it in 2016 was that this is part of a protracted struggle, a struggle for power, and that the electoral arena is one of the areas that we contest for power, that we build power, that we build structures of opposition. So it ain't no candidate-centered sort of approach. I haven't heard Jill talk about, vote for me and I set you free. Jill is talking about the absolute necessity for building a movement, for building a apparatus that can not only express the interests and the aspirations of millions of people out there who are fed up with the duopoly, but who understands that this battle goes beyond just the election in November. So
now listen, that's called my boy. You know nothing about that.
All right, can I just say
that is bars to me?
Listen, this how clear Jamu was.
Right.
This how clear he was.
And when he said African, that's the point.
African.
No, so
that was the funniest part, by the way, with his debate with Diallo. To me,
oh yeah.
African. You just don't know as much as you think you do. African.
No, but so two things, like, and maybe we can even do a replay of you and Carr's debate. But it's obvious the way we engage with the electoral politics or the system. You can't measure any change, and as Jared said in his book, we sure as hell ain't got no dollars. Right? And the people are centered and focused on representation. So what if you twist representation a little bit, instead of being represented in one of the duopolies, represented in a third party or at the party? Because I think that part of representation, I don't think we haven't got to yet. You know what I mean? Like we are represented in something that we find repulsive, as opposed to represented in spaces and making things look cool. I know I don't know if Kalanji said this, organizing is new cool or something like that, but
that's
the name of the documentary. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. Mm-hmm. So, but the idea is like, we can't be too whatever it is, so we're not making things attractive and making things cool or whatever the case may be, digestible, putting it in layman terms or whatever we got to do to not only get people connected, emotionally connected to public policy and the material conditions, material wins, but letting them also know about the material consequences that's going to come by not doing certain things. Right. So yeah, but yeah, I think that I did watch. I think I watched all of it.
It was good, and Dr. Stein, bless her soul, she sometimes she'd be like, Ajamu, which every time I'm like, didn't we discuss that's not how you pronounce that man's name?
Well, we can't. I'm not gonna blame anyone for that at this point. Like that was some inside Africanness right there with the Rupa breaking that down. Like that, I have never heard anybody say that before.
But she also had a way of trying to say, like, do you want to field this one? Because she wasn't sure if she was going to have the right answer. And he perfectly would be like, nah, you got it. And I think that was important, right? It was important to say, sis, you are the one running. You need to speak. Yeah. Don't throw me in front of you to try and create cover, before you say whatever it is that you think you need to say. And I think that's important. And I've told you, like, I'm not super thrilled with, with her decision. Like, I don't know that this is the best path forward. I personally really like Claudia, and
Ricky said he didn't mean it like that.
I'm not saying but that's how it felt when.
But she should
right?
be able to
And
answer that question.
She should be able to answer a question
Mhm.
that is thrown at her without trying to be like, do you want to take this one? Especially when he's asking about Black people.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
Kalanji asked her a straight up question about Black voters and working with, within the party with Black people, and she tried to punt it. And you cannot do that, right? So I'm glad I'm glad that was how it worked out. And part of the conversations that we have on our Black Caucus meetings, because there is a whole entire Black Caucus in the Green Party, is that people don't know they exist. Right. And so there's this constant conversation about Black people not being in the Green Party when there is an entire caucus, right, that meets monthly and has education conversations and and participates in trying to change the platform. Like, there's literally a thing now that's moving so that we can make an adjustment to the platform that the Black Caucus feels like is a necessity to be changed. So these things, these things exist and people don't know they exist. And it's important that if she is going to put herself out there as a presidential candidate, campaigning to be the presidential candidate for the Green Party, and there's a whole mess with that because of what happened in California, she has to be able to speak with clarity on these things. And it's important that she be able to do that.
I want to make sure I'm not the only nosy person, but I really wanted to know when they talked about them having an argument, a debate on who should run, and she said Ajamu win. I would want to hear that. Like, I would want to know how that went or what was said back and forth. Like, especially with that moment of like, no, go ahead and answer. You answer first. But I would want to know what was her line on why she think he should, and then what was his of like, nah.
Doctor, she's very smart. I've had actual conversations with her, and I do think that I do believe that in her mind she's running because she feels like it's the right thing to do. I don't think that she, I do think she's trying to build the Green Party. I do think that she has some like sense of wanting to break the duopoly, but I also think that she realizes that she should not be the person in the forefront. And it's very rare, in my opinion, for educated white women to be like, it shouldn't be me, like, you should do it. Right. So I also would love to know what that conversation is like.
But I wonder if, like, okay, so you have a Cornel West, like he said, more people know him than the party, and then you have he's gone, right? And then who could you replace him with other than a known name? And I wonder if Jill is known around the country more than Ajamu, or like
possibly. But she cleared some things up, and Ricky Ryan just said it, and I was glad to hear her clear up why she decided to run and why she opted for this step. I felt better after listening to that interview. I can tell you that.
I actually don't remember what did she say exactly. I've never. Yeah, I actually don't remember. Do you all remember what exactly she said? Was because I've always. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So essentially, what happened is this whole thing with Dr. West dropping out of the campaign to run for the presidential nomination was something that they were not prepared for.
Right.
It happened, and it happened out of the blue, and they were told after he made the decision that this is what was going to happen. And at that point, California was 2 to 3 weeks away from having to put forward their documents to get on the ballot in order to run in California. So they had to do something in order to move forward there. So California moved forward, putting Jill Stein's name in. I gotta say, this has caused a bit of an issue because all of the other candidates who are also running for the nomination of the Green Party are basically like, why California decided they were just going to put somebody in without going through the process. So they would have lost their ballot access in California if they hadn't moved forward to do something. Now, I'm not fully clear on the laws in California. If they had to put a name in, I don't really know how that ballot access worked. but there had to be a decision in that moment to say this is how we're going to move forward, or they weren't going to be able to move forward. And you cannot run without being able to run in California. So they had to do something, and they were kind of backs against the wall. So she jumped, you know, she took the responsibility. I think it sounds to me like she tried to convince Ajamu to do it. He was like, nah, you do it.
I thought they made a good team, and I thought from where I understood the Green Party to be back in 2016 in particular, in my own biased experience, I thought she was as good a selection for them as they could expect to get. And then, but similarly, I've always been wondering, why doesn't the Green Party do more to build up future candidates?
Right. So, and this is tricky because somebody in the chat asked about New York and New Jersey with the Green Party. So the New Jersey Greens are quite active, honestly. Like there's a lot, and you know, me being part of the communication line now, where I hear all this stuff, I'm actually surprised at how much they do. But it's not a large group of people who are super active. So right now within New Jersey, I am one of the people who's now tasked with trying to get more people to be involved. And because I do so many things, right? Like I'm always in the middle of planning out something, right? It gives the New Jersey Green Party an opportunity to get in front of people because they support the stuff that I do. So now we're solidifying our monthly abolition workshops. It's done. We've established the dates. We have a planning committee. We planned out the first one that's going to start in January. Like we have all the stuff set, and the Green Party is going to help me pay for the space, right? And so because of that, now anytime someone sees anything with regard to this monthly abolition workshop program, they're going to see Green Party New Jersey because they're going to help us pay for the space for it to happen. I don't know how much of this was happening before. Now, also keeping in mind COVID and all these other things, I wasn't in New Jersey, so I can't speak to it. But this is, you know, this is one of the things that I feel like is important and is in line also with what Geechee and I were talking about, which is you got to get in front of the people, right? And I feel like every party, every politician, every group fails at that. They fail at just talking to regular people. I don't know if you saw me and Todd like have our, you know, we had like a little back and forth on Twitter last night because, you know, it's the same thing. Like there are all these conversations happening about what should happen, right? But nobody's talking to the people that it's going to happen to, right? No one is sitting outside the train station and having a conversation with people as they walk by to say, like, how is this policy affecting you? What's the thing in your house that's most problematic? What, you know, what's the problem? Like, no one does that. No one does it. And
listen, that's the after party.
Right.
And I told Jared before how creative, I don't know if he came up with that by himself, but how creative that is and how catchy it is. And we could either do some pregame because people love the pregame. They don't really deal with the party, and they love the after party.
I will take credit for that. I did come up with that, but it's one of my favorites. And I also like where it got another place it got crystallized was watching Large Professor DJ on the gentrifying H Street in Northeast. And I was sitting in there, and it was like an after party event. And I was like, man, this is so dope. It's a shame that it's happening after the party of blackness in Northeast DC. But I was like, this is it. The after party's always better, or at least it claims to be.
I mean, I think
so. I just liked it.
Ujima does it in which is great, and I feel like more people need to do it. But this actually takes us to the last clip, and we still have like.
Yep, I got it all set up here. So we got just enough time. Yeah. Here we go.
To recognize the moment that we're in, that we are confronting a desperate and dangerous ruling class that has committed itself to the use of violence and force to maintain its hegemony. We have to also recognize that that we have people that are completely disorganized right now. So that what that means is that the only way that we're going to be able to survive and to prosper, that is to go forward, is we've got to get ourselves organized. So building effective organization is the number one priority. Organization, political education, developing survival programs on the local level. That is the task that we have. Preparing ourselves to be able to defend ourselves, to defend our communities, because as I said, this crisis is only going to deepen. The issue of lawlessness and paramilitarism is only going to deepen in the U.S. And I might sound dramatic to some people, but you know, the writing seems to be on the wall. So it might sound simplistic when we talk about the need for organization, but you know, name me a revolutionary change that took place without organization. Show me a historical experience where people survive without being organized. So that for us is the primary task. That's what many of us are attempting to do. It's difficult, but we have no other choice but to in fact do that.
Now listen, that's called my.
Right. You gotta organize, man. Like you can't. And you know, someone mentioned in the chat, like there's small groups that do it, and they do it. You know, they call it like whatever organizing, and they door knocking, all these things, and they need to, but they also need to talk to each other, right? Because part of this is there are multiple small groups of people organizing in their silos, and you're missing opportunities to connect with other organizations and broaden who you talk to, right? So like part of the thing, and you know I keep bringing it up, but I'm like super excited about these workshops that we're going to do, is it's not just me, right? It's Montclair Beyond Policing. It's, you know, like there are other organizations that are helping me plan it. And we intentionally did it that way. We reached out to people in other organizations and said, can you come on this planning group? We're going to offer this, you know, to the community. We're going to ask other people to come and other organizations to come. And the goal is each one teach one. So we're going to give you information. We're going to give you something that you can then turn around and bring back to your community and your organization, and that you can share out so that the word spreads, right? Because there's no other way to do it. You have to find a way to maximize the conversation by allowing other people to bring information outside of your circle. Because we can all sit in a silo and talk together in a room, and we might get organized, and we might learn some things, and you know, we're all reading Tip of the Spear Geechee on our reading group, right? But if you're not turning around and giving that information to other people, then what are you doing? Like, where's it going? How is it helping? How is it going to change anything? How is it going to, you know, mobilize an effort towards actually improving the material conditions of the people around you? And that has to be the goal. It has to be the goal, or we're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Right on. Go ahead, Geechee.
No, I agree. I think that's one of the things that even with the effort of trying to do this in different communities, like it's harder there. And then you have maybe online, I could see a Jared, a Renee, a Ricky, and all these people, but we're not in the same community. But then sometimes when you get in those spaces, all those people do is just want to like know some shit, and they don't really use it in the community. So I think that having some type of apparatus or tool to like marry the two, or maybe even the three, having a polygamist, all the other organizations, I think it'd be a great move. Polyamory, everybody get the love.
Can't stand you.
Pause.
Well, that's something you haven't had to bring out with me on here, Jared.
No, that's one thing. I was like, I can reposition that one lower in the screen. It's not necessary. We also don't have to have Hoppin' Bob either. This show is anti Hoppin' Bob. Like this is how you keep Hoppin' Bob away, is by organizing on Saturdays with Renee. Bars. That's just bars. All right, good people. We got to make way, stretch, and get ready for Warrior Class. Is great. I think. Listen, you mentioned it. I personally would love it. I wanted to do it anyway. 'Tis the season. If I don't know if we want to do this next week or whenever, but have Geechee come back for maybe we could revisit Dr. Carr's debate.
Let's do it. If you're free, I'm already here.
Yeah,
so.
let's. All right, so let's. Yeah, I should be around still. So let's. All right, that'd be kind of because that.
That was
There we go. The giggle. There we go.
It's wrong, bro.
All right, good people. Let's get out of here.
All right, man.
Peace if you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. Come on back for Warrior Class right here on BPM. Make sure you got the bell rung, like, share, subscribe. Thanks to everybody who was here live and everybody who will see this later. Peace to you as well. All right, everybody. Peace. Saturday with Renee.